From HMC, the Advocacy Committee for Human Experimentation Survivors of Mind Control. This videotape is our formal document requesting a presidential hearing and the declassification of government records relating to mind control experiments conducted on unwitting children and adults and funded by the United States government from the 1940s onward. HMC was formed as a direct result of testimony given to your advisory committee on March 15, 1995 by Valerie, Claudia Mullen, and Chretien, survivors of federally funded childhood mind control experiments. After consulting with 40 other therapists across the country, the majority of whom remained anonymous for reasons of personal safety, Ms. Wolf documented in writing the names of research projects and the names of the people involved. The two survivors, Claudia Mullen and Nicola, testified that as children they experienced electric shock, hallucinogens, dislocation of limbs, sadistic acts of pedophilia, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation. We represent the North American survivors of non-consensual, federally funded mind control experimentation. Since 1945, hundreds, if not thousands, of American and Canadian victims, primarily female, have been physically and sexually tortured, locked in cages, sadistically brainwashed with electricity, drugs, and experimental military technologies, and programmed to perform specific tasks, including crimes. Some were selected before birth and tortured throughout infancy. For others, the process began later in childhood or adulthood. Survivors' stories are remarkably similar, and it is believed that we are now entering an era where third-generation human subjects are being subjected to torture to induce mind control programming that begins in infancy. All of this is done in the name of national security. The documented acts of torture and atrocity carried out by the Nazi physicians under the Third Reich have been systematically exceeded by those conducting covert mind control experiments on human subjects in North America since the end of the last World War and beginning of the Cold War. While publicly condemning the race, hatred, and death camps of the Third Reich, the American and Canadian governments have been harboring a concentration camp without walls on this continent. Victims now in their 30s, 40s, and 50s are discovering themselves to be functioning as multiple personalities, intentionally created to serve body, mind, and soul as Manchurian candidates. Once selected, we have been used as human lab animals. Some of us have been used throughout our lifetime in one externally controlled and monitored experiment after another. These experiments are in total defiance of the laws of nature, the Nuremberg Code, which has been the official American policy since 1946, the Hippocratic Oath, and the judicial system. They are also in total defiance of the guidelines for federally funded biomedical and behavioral research involving human subjects. However, members of the medical and behavioral research communities, bound by vested interests and threats to their professional, if not physical lives, have been reluctant to publicly and academically address this situation. It has been over 2 years since Valerie, Claudia Mullen, and Chretien testified before your committee. At the conclusion of the presidential hearing on human radiation experiments, your committee recommended further exploration of the mind control experimentation on unwitting human subjects. Nothing has been done, and there has been no coverage or investigation by the mainstream media, despite the testimony provided by Wolf, Mullen, and Ebner. Further in this videotape are statements by both survivors of non-consensual, federally funded mind control experimentation as children or adults, and also by therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, a lawyer, and a criminologist who are cognizant of the devastating results of survivors' experiences. As survivors and professionals willing to come forward publicly, we formally request the following. 1. The declassification of all government files, documents, tapes, or records of any nature related to or connected with the programs of mind control research and operations, and the prosecution of any person who has at any time engaged in criminal conduct related to such research or operations. 2. To demand a presidential hearing to identify all U.S. government-sponsored research programs and operations involving covert mind control experimentation, both inside and outside of the United States. Determine the federal government's responsibilities, legal, moral, and ethical, for wrongs and harms done to human subjects as a result of the mind control experiment and operational use of methods and technology developed from those experiments on both children and adults from 1945 to the present. Determine appropriate remedies for those subjects who have been found to be physically or psychologically wronged or harmed. Study past and present research standards and practices to develop and implement standards and practices that would immediately stop current abuses and place a complete moratorium on human mind control experimentation and covert mind control operations. We ask you now, on Memorial Day 1997, as military veterans in the sense of having been used without our consent or knowledge in military experiments to refine the techniques of psychological warfare on behalf of the United States government, to commission a presidential hearing on mind control experimentation on human subjects.
My name is Blanche, and I'm a citizen of the United States. I've been a victim of mind control experimentation since 1956 when I entered college. I've been in experiments in upstate New York, Syracuse, Oswego. I've also been a victim at Penn State, in the Maimonides Center, the parapsychology labs at Princeton. I've been in one experiment after another. Finally, I was kidnapped and taken to Cornell, a medical center in Westchester. This has to stop for the welfare of the country, for our children, for the future. Thanks.
Mr. President, thank you for your time. My name is Dave. I was one of 15 children procured for adoption into wealthy families by 3 German medical doctors at the Women's Medical College of Philadelphia. I have experienced horror in my childhood. I was into addiction, sexual addiction, since kindergarten. Following a severe head injury in 1985, memories of ritual abuse began to surface. Memories of child pornography, experimentation, lots of little girls, fondling, sexual abuse, abreaction of rapes as a 4-year-old, violent sexual abuse. In 1996 and 95, I began experiencing repressed memories of broken limbs, broken arms, ripping the electrodes out of my head. And presently I'm experiencing waves of electricity through my face, trying to erase the electricity, and sores in my nose. They quickly disappear as a result of putting the electrodes in my nose. I'm in pain as a result of my mental consequences from the abuse. I am on Social Security disability. A major decision without a hearing. That's how severe my mental situation is right now. I'm asking and rightfully demanding an explanation of the horrors and why my life has ended like this. Having raised a family and done it right, and find myself in this situation experiencing the memories of this horror that was perpetrated against me as a little child. Thank you for your time.